After what felt like a lifetime of labor, 28 agonizing hours of pain that racked every part of my body, my husband reached over and grabbed the birth certificate paperwork straight from the nurse's hands. His voice was flat, like he had already made up his mind. "Our daughter is going to be named after my mother." I blinked at him, completely caught off guard. I was still shaking, still bleeding, barely able to keep my head up. I tried to speak, to object, but before I could even finish the first word, he looked at me with this smug little grin and said, "You do not get a say." The room went still. The nurse, an older woman with tired eyes but a sharpness to her, glanced at me, then leaned in close and whispered, "Do you want me to tell the truth?" My heart stopped. I could feel it pounding in my chest like a drum. What truth? What was she talking about? Let me back up a bit. My husband, let us call him Eric, though that is not his real name, and I had been together for 6 years, and married for 3. I honestly believed our relationship was solid. We were not perfect, but I thought we had a strong foundation, something built on love and mutual respect. Turns out, I was wrong. So very wrong. And the red flags? They were there all along, I just ignored them, hoping things would get better. The very first time I met Eric's mother, Linda, I knew deep down she did not like me. She had this way of making everything about herself, always needing to be the center of attention. It was like she believed the world owed her something. And the way she treated Eric, like he was some divine gift, incapable of doing wrong, it was unsettling. In the beginning, it was little things. Comments that sounded polite on the surface but were meant to sting. She would compliment my dress and then add, "That color hides your shape nicely." Or she would ask about my job and follow it with, "That's cute, for now." Small, sharp jabs that chipped away at my confidence. But over time, those little remarks turned into full-blown criticisms. She needed to control every part of Eric's life, and by extension, mine. When we got engaged, she threw a fit because Eric had dared to pick out the engagement ring on his own, without her input. She acted like it was a betrayal. When we bought our first home together, she picked it apart completely. The neighborhood was too noisy, the kitchen was too small, the paint color was depressing. She acted like she was the one moving in. And what really got me? She would just show up unannounced, like she owned the place. Every time I brought it up to Eric, hoping he would finally set some boundaries, he just brushed it off. "That's just how she is," he would say. "She means well." But she did not. Not at all. She wanted to be the most important woman in his life, and the fact that he had chosen me? That made her see red. I thought maybe things would improve when I got pregnant. I hoped that becoming a grandmother would soften her heart. But instead, it got worse. Much worse. The moment she found out I was expecting, she jumped in like it was her pregnancy and not mine. She hated every baby name I liked, dismissed them as too trendy or not meaningful. She demanded I follow the same diet she followed when she was pregnant, with foods that made me sick just thinking about them. And she even tried to tell me which obstetrician to see, acting like the doctor I had trusted for years was not good enough. And Eric? He went along with it. Like always. He had always been a mama's boy, I knew that, but I did not realize just how far it went until then. When I was 6 months pregnant, Linda said something to me that I will never forget. We were sitting at the kitchen table, and out of nowhere she looked me square in the eye and said, "I hope the baby looks like Eric's side of the family. Your features would not suit a girl." Eric was right there. He heard it loud and clear. And he said nothing. Not a word. That was the first time I felt something shift between us. A crack in the marriage I thought was unshakable. When my due date came, the labor was brutal. I had never known pain like that. It felt like my whole body was coming apart. And then, when our daughter was finally born, before I could even process the moment or hold her close, he grabbed the paperwork from the nurse. No eye contact. No conversation. Just that cold, matter-of-fact voice, "She's going to be named after my mother." I could barely speak, but I managed to say, "No, we had already agreed on a name." together. But he looked at me with that same condescending little smile and said, "You do not get a say." It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. And that nurse, the one who had been watching quietly the whole time, leaned in and whispered, "Do you want me to tell the truth?" I stared at her, completely stunned. I had no idea what she meant. But something in her eyes told me it was serious. She glanced at Eric, then back at me and murmured, "Not here." "But you need to know." A cold chill crept over me. I looked at Eric, still scribbling on that form, completely oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. I had spent years being the calm one. The one who avoided conflict, who let things slide to keep the peace. But something in me broke in that moment. "You are not naming her after your mother," I said, louder this time, my voice steadier than I expected. Eric froze. He looked up like I had just slapped him across the face. "Excuse me," he said, like he could not believe I was standing up to him. "She is our daughter," I said, my voice low and tight, every word forced through clenched teeth. "We agreed on a name, Eric. You do not get to just change it without me. That is not how this works." His jaw tensed, and his face hardened in a way I had never seen before. Eric had been irritated with me before, sure. Frustrated? Plenty of times. But this? This was different. His entire expression twisted into something cold and unfamiliar. And in a voice that sent chills down my spine, he said, "You do not get a say." Then he added something that hit me like a slap. "After everything I have done for you, you should be grateful I am even letting you put your last name on the birth certificate." For a moment, I could not breathe. It felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. The nurse, who had been standing nearby, gasped. "Oh, hell no," she muttered under her breath. But Eric was not finished. He was worked up now, and the venom in his words only deepened. "If you have a problem with it, maybe you should not have been so difficult during the pregnancy. You had one job, to carry my baby. You do not get to make decisions. That is my right." Something inside me cracked wide open. I had held it together through so much, but this was too much. And then, something happened I did not expect. The nurse, who had been silently observing, suddenly stepped forward and snatched the clipboard right out of Eric's hands. "You will not speak to her like that," she snapped, her voice like a whip across the room. Eric spun around to face her, completely stunned. His eyes wide with disbelief. "What the hell?" But the nurse did not flinch. She flipped through the papers on the clipboard, then looked him dead in the eye and said, "You are lucky she does not know the whole story yet." Just like that, my stomach dropped. I could feel it in my bones, she knew something. Something big. I turned to look at Eric. All the color had drained from his face. He was pale, like a ghost. "What is she talking about?" I asked, my voice cracking slightly. "Nothing," he said quickly. Too quickly. "She is just trying to start drama." But the nurse was not backing down. "I do not think so," she said sharply. Eric's eyes darted between the two of us. I could see the panic rising in him. His whole posture shifted, tense, defensive, like he was ready to bolt. Then the nurse leaned down toward me, her voice low enough that only I could hear. "You should check the insurance records," she whispered. At first, I did not understand what she meant. But as the words sank in, it hit me like a freight train. Eric had been the one handling all the paperwork during my pregnancy. The doctor's visits, the insurance details, I had trusted him with everything. I never thought to double-check. Why would I? He was my husband. I believed he had our family's best interest at heart. My throat went dry. I turned to face him. "Eric, what did you do?" His hands clenched into fists, and he snapped, "Nothing." But there was a sheen of sweat on his forehead now. His breathing was different. Shallow. Uneven. He was nervous. The nurse let out a sigh and shook her head. "I have seen this before," she said. Women come in here thinking their husbands are handling everything. They trust them. And then they find out they are not even listed as the primary parent. My whole body went cold. Eric suddenly stood up, knocking his chair back. "We are leaving," he said. I ignored him. "You changed my insurance records," I said slowly. My voice was shaking, but I needed to say it out loud. I needed to hear it myself. "I did what I had to do," he snapped. The nurse crossed her arms, staring him down. "Do you want me to pull the records?" she asked. "Because I can do that right now." Eric's face twisted with rage. He turned to me, his voice rising. "You are not doing this. You just gave birth, you are hormonal, and you are not thinking straight." But I was thinking straight. For the first time in a long time I was seeing things clearly. He had betrayed me. He had gone behind my back. Eric reached for my wrist, not in a violent way, but firmly, trying to assert control. "We are not doing this here," he said. I pulled my arm away. "You do not control me," I said sharply. And then I saw it. Not just anger, fear. Real, raw fear in his eyes. He knew the truth was about to come out. The nurse looked at me. "Do you want to see the records?" I did not even hesitate. "Yes," I said. Eric let out a bitter laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Fine," he said. "You want the truth? You were never supposed to see them." The room suddenly felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. The nurse nodded once and said, "Let me go get them." Then she walked out, leaving me alone with the man I thought I knew. I looked straight at him. "You are going to tell me what is going on. Right now." He rubbed his face with both hands, then dragged them through his hair, pacing. "You do not understand how hard this has been for me," he said. "My mother, your mother, we do not see things the same way." He took a deep breath and finally admitted, "She said she knew what was best for the baby. She told me you were too emotional. Too soft. That I had to take control." My stomach turned. "So you what?" I asked, barely able to speak. "You took me off my own child's insurance? You made yourself the only legal guardian?" He said nothing. That silence was all I needed. The nurse returned, a folder in her hands. She placed it gently on my lap and opened it for me. And there it was, in black and white. Eric had listed himself as the sole parent. My name was not on any of the documents. Not even once. My entire body went cold. "You were going to take her from me," I whispered. Eric did not deny it. He just looked down. I felt like I was going to be sick. The nurse's voice was firm and sharp. "You are lucky I caught this," she said. "I have seen women lose custody of their own children over things like this." Eric stood up, his tone defensive. "You are overreacting." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "I am done," I said softly. And then he laughed. An actual laugh. Like I was nothing more than a silly little girl throwing a tantrum. "You think you can just walk away?" Eric scoffed, his voice dripping with disbelief. "You just had a baby, where exactly do you think you're going to go?" Before I could even answer, the nurse gently placed her hand on my shoulder. Her voice was steady, reassuring. "She will not be alone." That wiped the smirk right off Eric's face. And right then, I knew it, his little world, the one he built with lies and manipulation, was about to collapse right in front of him. His expression twisted into something between anger and panic. I could practically see his mind racing, trying to come up with a way to spin this, to smooth it over like he had so many times before. But this time it was different. I was different. I turned to the nurse, my voice shaky but determined. "What do I do now?" She looked me straight in the eyes. "Do you have anyone nearby? Someone you trust, family?" I nodded slowly. "My sister Tess. She's about 30 minutes away." Tess had always been there for me, kind, honest, protective. She would drop everything if I needed her. I pulled out my phone to call her, but before I could even tap the screen, Eric lunged forward and ripped it out of my hands. "You're not doing this," he growled. The nurse stepped between us, her tone sharp as a blade. "Give her the phone. Now." He hesitated for a moment, eyes darting between us. Then, with a sneer, he tossed the phone onto the hospital bed. "You're making a mistake," he muttered, but I ignored him. I picked up the phone and dialed Tessa's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice cheerful. "Hey. How are you? How's the baby?" I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. My throat tightened, and I felt tears welling up. I was right on the edge of falling apart. Seeing that I couldn't speak, the nurse gently took the phone from my hand and said, "Hi, Tess. This is Nurse Jenna at the hospital. Your sister needs you here. Right now." Without missing a beat, Tess said, "I'm on my way." His face darkened, but before he could respond, the nurse cut in, her voice cold and firm. "What's ridiculous is what you tried to do here. And let me tell you, hospital staff talk. We do not take kindly to men who try to take babies away from their mothers." Eric's fists clenched, but he stayed quiet. He knew the damage was done. I turned back to the nurse. "Can we fix this? The paperwork?" She nodded. "Yes. And we're going to document everything. If he tries to pull anything else, there will be a record. A legal trail." Eric stiffened. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." But the sweat on his forehead said otherwise. He was losing control, and he knew it. Then his phone rang. At first, I barely noticed it. But then I saw the caller ID flash on the screen, Mom. Everything clicked into place. This was not just his doing. His mother was part of it. Probably orchestrated it from the very beginning. Eric declined the call, but before he could put the phone away, I grabbed his wrist. "You're going to tell me the truth," I said, trembling with fury. "There's nothing to tell," he said, voice defensive and shaky. The nurse folded her arms. "You can either be honest now, or she'll find out when we pull the records. Either way, it's over." Eric's eyes flicked toward me, then to our baby, then back again. And for the first time, I saw it, guilt. Real guilt. I needed to hear him say it. I needed the truth. "What did you do?" I asked. Silence. I reached for his phone, but he yanked it away from me. "Fine," he snapped. "You want the truth?" My whole body tensed. "My mother said I needed to make sure the baby was legally under my name only," he said, his voice bitter. "She told me that if you ever tried to leave me, you wouldn't be able to take her." The room started spinning. I clutched our daughter closer, holding her like she was the only thing keeping me grounded. Eric kept going, like he couldn't stop himself now. "She said she could help me get a lawyer. That the courts would never side with you since you don't earn as much. That if I played it right, I could get full custody." My stomach twisted. His mother had been planning to take my child from me, before she was even born. And Eric? He had gone along with it. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would you do this to me?" He rubbed a hand over his face and muttered, "Because you never respected my mother." The room went dead silent. The nurse inhaled sharply. "Oh my God," she murmured. I let out a hollow laugh, one that didn't sound like me at all. "You tried to take my child away from me, because I didn't worship your mother?" Eric had no response. The nurse turned to me, her voice brisk and full of purpose. "We are going to fix this. Right now." She gathered up my paperwork and left the room, probably heading straight to the hospital administrator. Eric took a step toward me. "Look, this got out of hand. We can fix it." I tightened my arms around our daughter. "There is no we anymore." Right then, the door burst open and Tess walked in. One look at my face and she knew something was wrong. "What the hell is going on?" she asked. Before I could answer, Eric's phone buzzed again. Tess moved fast, she snatched it right out of his hand. She glanced at the screen and frowned. It wasn't just another call from his mom, there were text messages. Dozens of them. She unlocked his phone without hesitation, of course she knew the passcode. And then her face went pale. She turned the screen toward me, and everything inside me shifted again. My whole world tilted. There were messages between Eric and another woman. I can't wait to see you. Once the baby is here, we can finally be together. She won't have anything left. She'll be stuck. Tessa's hands trembled. Are you kidding me? Eric stood frozen, his face drained of color. I just stared at the screen, my vision going blurry. He hadn't only tried to take my child, he had been planning to leave me for someone else. While I was pregnant. While I was carrying his baby. And it was not just infidelity. It was premeditated. Cold. Calculated. She won't have anything left. She'll be stuck. That message hit me like a punch to the gut. It was never about love. It was not about our family. It was about control. He wanted to trap me. To take my baby, leave me with nothing, and move on with someone else. I felt like I was drowning, the sound of my heartbeat roaring in my ears. Despite the chaos inside me, I felt a strange calm settle in. A dangerous calm. The kind that only comes after betrayal so deep, it changes you. I looked up at Eric, my voice low and steady. You have no idea what you've just done. He lunged for the phone, but Tess pulled it back with a snarl. Oh no, you are not getting out of this. I could not look away from the screen. The texts kept coming, proof of everything. My hands trembled as I scrolled. I was still recovering from labor, still physically weak, but emotionally? I was waking up. Eric had not just broken my trust. He had tried to ruin my life. And now, I was done letting him win. My baby girl was sleeping soundly in my arms, unaware of the storm that had just passed through her world. She didn't know yet that her own father had already betrayed her before she even had the chance to see his face clearly. I looked directly at Eric. Who is she? His lips parted, but no words came out. Tess kept scrolling, her face hardening until suddenly she stopped. Oh my God. Her eyes locked on mine. You're not going to believe this. She turned the screen to me. And there it was, a name I recognized right away. The woman Eric had been seeing was the daughter of Linda's best friend. The one Linda had always gushed about. The one she wanted Eric to be with instead of me. Everything shifted in that moment. This wasn't just some affair. This wasn't just about power. It had been coordinated. Pushed. Arranged. And Eric had gone right along with it. I stood up, my body still aching, and shoved the phone against his chest. How long? I asked, my voice low and steady. Eric's face was still ghostly pale. It's not what it looks like. Tess let out a harsh laugh. Are you serious? It looks like you and your mother plotted an entire life without my sister. Eric's jaw tensed. She wasn't supposed to find out this way. I laughed, dry and bitter. So what? I was just supposed to find out after you took my baby and erased me? He rolled his eyes. You're being ridiculous. And just like that, something inside me sparked. I grabbed the hospital paperwork off the tray and tore it right down the middle. You don't own me. You don't get to decide her life. My voice shook, but I didn't back down. That was when the door opened again. Linda walked in like she still had control over the situation. Her eyes went straight to the ripped papers in my hand, then the phone screen that still showed the messages. She paused for a beat, then gave a small, smug smile. Well, I guess the truth is out. Tess stared at her, stunned. You're not even going to lie about it? Linda lifted her chin. She didn't look ashamed, she looked proud. And that's when I knew, this wasn't some impulsive mistake. This had been her plan all along. I turned to Eric. You let her do this. He didn't answer. He couldn't. There was nothing he could say that would excuse any of it. Linda stepped forward, her tone controlled and fake sweet. You need to understand, we only want what's best for the child. I held my daughter closer. The best thing for her is to be nowhere near you. Linda sighed, like I was being dramatic. You can't raise her on your own. Eric has the job. The stability. You don't. Tess cut in, sharp and furious. Save it. You think my sister's going to hand her baby over to you? Dream on. Linda turned to Eric. Fix this. But then I saw it, hesitation in his eyes. That fear. That uncertainty. I leaned in, quietly but with fire in my voice. If you go through with this, I will bring everything to light. The insurance fraud. The cheating. The lies. I will take this to court and make sure you never get near her again. Eric blinked, his eyes shifting between me and his mom. He was cracking. She's bluffing, Linda snapped. We have lawyers. I didn't look away. Then let's see how far your lawyers get. The room went quiet. And then Eric broke. I can't do this, he mumbled. Linda's head snapped toward him. What did you just say? Eric's voice was barely audible. I didn't think it would go this far. Linda was furious. After everything I've done for you, you're going to ruin it over her? Eric winced. And I knew I'd won. Not because he loved me. Not because he realized what he'd done. But because his mom no longer had a grip on him, and without her calling the shots, he had no idea what to do. Linda stormed out. He didn't follow. Tess grabbed her phone and called our cousin, who's an attorney. He came to the hospital with the nurse's documentation. We filed everything right then and there. Legally corrected. My name only. Full custody. All above board. Eric didn't fight it. I think deep down, he knew there was nothing left to save. A few days later, I left the hospital with my daughter in my arms. Eric didn't come home with us. Linda tried to reach out, calls, messages, even showed up at my apartment once. I didn't let her in. Tess called the police, and after that, she stopped trying. Eric moved out. I filed for divorce. As for the other woman? She dumped him the second she realized he had nothing left to give. It took time to accept what had happened. To sit with the fact that the man I married had been willing to tear my life apart. But